Good morning, little chef. Welcome to day 33 of working as a chef on a yacht. Since it's just the crew on board, everyone kind of did their own thing for breakfast, but I did get into the galley to serve them lunch. The crew is always requesting cheeseburgers. If they could have it their way, they would have one every single day for lunch. So of course I surprised them with cheeseburgers, also put out some leftovers, and made a salad to go along with it. I prepared my plate with a cheeseburger, salad, and Bahamian macaroni pie. This is similar to American mac and cheese, but it's baked, so it's a little more solidified, and there's a little kick to it. After lunch, I got back into the galley. Even though there are no guests on board, there's still a lot of work to get done. I'm using this free time to bake some desserts to take a little bit off my plate for when the guests are on board. It gets pretty busy, so the more that I can get done now, the better. First dessert I'm making are coconut macaroons. And silly me, I forgot a hand mixer. I tried to use my immersion blender to whip some air into these egg whites, but it didn't work too well. So I threw the egg whites into the milk frother, which worked a little bit better. Ever since my first year on the yacht, these coconut macaroons have been the #1 requested dessert by the guests. So when I make a batch of these, I'll usually triple it to keep some in the freezer and pull them whenever a guest requests them. The next dessert I'm making are brownies. The key to a really fudgy brownie is powdered sugar. Let's all take a moment to appreciate how well I'm measuring. Thankfully, brownie recipes are pretty forgiving. Now, you probably remember me saying that the owners don't eat sugar or gluten, but these are for the guests coming on board. And they have no dietary restrictions, so we're going crazy. To add a little pizzazz into these brownies, I'm adding some chocolate-covered pretzels. The next dessert I'm making, I'm really excited for. I'm gonna make Biscoff cheesecake bites. I'll throw the cookies into a food processor and blend them up until they're fine crumbs. Throw in some melted butter, and that's gonna help keep the crust together. I'll line a muffin tin with some cupcake wrappers and start filling it with the crust. To ensure that the crust sets, I took a little ramekin and pressed it into the cupcake molds. For the cheesecake filling, I'm keeping it really simple. I didn't even use a recipe because I've made it so many times. I just used some cream cheese, vanilla extract, sugar, and egg. I'll mix that up until it's smooth and then put it into the cupcake liners. When I serve these, I take them out of the cupcake liner so you can see those beautiful layers. This next dessert is super simple, but it's always a crowd pleaser. These Oreo truffles are probably one of my favorite desserts. So again, I'm going to use my food processor, throw in my Oreos with some cream cheese, and blend it up. It's going to be a really sticky batter, so I'll usually wear gloves and portion these into balls. And typically, I'll throw these into the freezer to get them really nice and cold. It definitely helps when we dip these into the chocolate. I'll dip the Oreo truffles into dark chocolate and drizzle them with white chocolate. I think the contrasting colors make these look so elegant. I first learned this recipe when I was back in high school, and it's still a staple to this day. If there's ever a dessert recipe that doesn't involve baking, you know I'm in. For the last dessert I'm prepping today, I'm making baklava. Again, I'm using my food processor for this because we need to blend up all of these nuts. I could chop these by hand, but this makes life a lot easier. And now, time for the fun part. I'll grab my phyllo dough, which are paper-thin pieces of dough, and we'll start layering them with butter in between each layer. As this bakes, the water from the butter will start to evaporate, causing steam in between each layer, and that's what makes it super crunchy. In the middle of it, we'll put in our nuts and spices, and then layer on the top with more phyllo dough and butter. I'll score the top and pop it into the oven until it's golden brown. While it's baking, I'll make my honey syrup with sugar, honey, and water. As soon as this comes out of the oven, you want to pour on that honey syrup so it really soaks into the pastry. You should hear this crackling sound. I got all of my dessert prep done for the day. I now have 5 days of desserts ready. I've got my baklava, Oreo truffles, coconut macaroons, brownies, and Biscoff cheesecake bites. Now on to dinner prep. I don't keep stock on board just because it takes up so much room, but I have this concentrated bouillon base. So I'm using that tonight to make some pho. I'll throw in all of my herbs and aromatics into the stock and start cutting up my chicken in really thin slices. I'll also get some water heating to cook off my rice noodles. Then all I have to do is plate it up. I'll garnish the pho with some lime, basil, sriracha, and hoisin. If you're enjoying this channel, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I I served up dinner to the crew, and we ended our night by tasting some different ice creams that I made in the Ninja Creamy. We tried raspberry yogurt and mixed berry cheesecake with white chocolate. Bye, little chef.